Welcome to Braithwaite TV. Things have just got to change.
Welcome back from that break, and we hope you were able to pick up a thing or two. So, going straight into it, we have our very first topic of the day for discussion. And this time around, events, a lot of things have been happening, and a lot of calls from some people of prominence have come up for the president to make room for suspension of the 2023 general elections. And that is our topic for the day, calls for suspension of the 2023 general elections. All right, and with those insights and all we had that, we will discuss this topic with our guest for the day, and he is Olumide Braithwaite. He's a lawyer and also a politician. So we welcome Olumide to the show. Good morning, Olumide. Welcome to Morning Dew.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, so we are talking about the calls for the suspension of the 2023 election. How is this a reflection of what is going on in our country right now? Do you really think it's a popular opinion amongst Nigerians at this time?
Thank you very much. As you know, I'm a legal practitioner, and I'm also a politician, having contested for Senate, not in the past election, but in 2015. The calls for the suspension of this present elections have not been unanimous. It's been divided because of there is no parity generally in the country with regards to what is going on. We have insecurity in the north, northeast, and the northwest. Somebody mentioned corruption, that this administration was saddled with the responsibility of dealing with, and the path mark for that is for everybody to judge by in terms of corruption. Have a very pathetic that is essentially oil and gas based, and our production capacity is dwindling with each passing day. Our earning power has dropped, the naira has dropped, inflation, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, is anywhere close to 20%. So the situation in the country is very dire. The gentleman in the studio there also mentioned, students, the ASU strike.
Yeah.
But all these things are not new. Even the calls for suspending an election is not a new thing. I think as much as after the 1999 elections and several calls for sustaining elections, for them to be cancelled for various reasons. I know Section 14 of the Constitution also mentions, talks about security or insecurity. And no doubt, whichever government comes into power is going to have that saddled to its responsibility as well.
True.
It's a question of our country slipping further and backwards. And so I'm not really sure where's that coming from. I'm not sure what the motivation for the suspension is. And more practically, what are the options? What are the alternatives? We do suspend these elections.
Okay. Okay.
Constitutionally speaking, and provisionally speaking as well. You can't just call for the suspension of an electoral process without, number one, cogent reasons, number two, a consensus, or at least a very strong call or cause for the stopping of the elections. And then number three, of course, you have to have B or alternatives for the transition or the interim government, because this government cannot stay further than 3 allocation of office. So these are all the things that we have to consider.
All right. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, Mr. Olumide, I want to find out if in the middle of the election there is problem, let's say in Sokoto State there, in Niger State, that people cannot go out to vote, and then the president comes up to say, this election is suspended because of this high tension insecurity in these places where people cannot come out. What would be of it? Instead of us to now look into what those statements really mean to the country, should we suspend it now and have a good plan, or go ahead with it and then in the middle of it there is a problem and then there is a call for suspension? How would you look at that?
Okay, while we are trying to get back to Olumide, our phone lines are open, and you can call in if you've got any questions or comments, and the phone lines will appear on the screen, and you can call in. So back to Olumide. Yes, Taylor's question.
So Mr. Olumide, are you with us?
Yes, he is.
Now, what I'm
Yes,
saying
I'm
that,
with you.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that now that there is this call for suspension to let us get it right, looking into the Constitution, like that's what the call is saying. But if we go ahead with the elections and then in the middle of it, there's a problem somewhere like in Niger State, people can't come out to vote. Sokoto State, people can come out to vote. Benue State, people can come out to vote. And then the president says this election is cancelled because people cannot risk their lives to come and vote with all that we are seeing. What will it look like? If we are hearing this now and we're not looking at it, then we'll keep it to that day. How would you see to that situation?
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting scenario that you have painted there. But it again goes back to the issue of our flawed democracy and constitution. You mentioned certain parts of the country where the trouble spots are. We know very much the states and the regions that are affected by Boko Haram and terrorists. I think that is what you are saying specifically. let's call a spade let's say it as it is. For too long in this country, we sugarcoat things. Okay, so the 1999 Constitution is a sham constitution. It's a military decree. It has no basis for sustaining in Nigeria. And it's a very dangerous precipice that we have reached now in our democracy with this terrorism. The picture that you have painted is not far-fetched. It could very well become a reality. T14 National Conference, if you can recall back under the Jonathan Goodluck administration, convened a sovereign national conference which looked at all of these issues, including insecurity, including 6 geopolitical zones, including regional policing, so on and so on. So it's not as if these things have not been identified before, but nothing whatsoever has happened. I was fortunate enough to be part of that 2014 because I accompanied my late father, Dr. Tunji Braithwaite, who was an elder statesman who had called for the convening of this conference as a panacea for our myriad of problems. Unfortunately, it was these same elections that you could say truncated the implementation of that conference, because the report was submitted, and this was done with men and women from all across the country, and solutions were proffered in this report, but nothing came of it because the government of the day, the PDP at the time, were too about elections and winning the elections, and the report is still on the table. I cannot say that I have a spyglass to foresee what is happening, but on the trajectory that Nigeria is heading, it's not a very good one. A few weeks ago, I was at the Federal Capital Territory, and I was discussing with an English gentleman, businessman, who was extremely concerned for the first time, according to him, in over 30 years of trading with Nigeria, about the security concerns in the country. And he asked me a question, that what do I think if we foresaw people running to Cotonou, this and that, and refugees, and so that would be the biggest human catastrophe in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. So yeah, it is what it is, I'm afraid.
It is what it is, indeed. Now, moving on from that question, which is sort of similar to what I want to ask. Now, he talked about, insecurity probably stemming the electoral process, and he mentioned some areas in the north, probably the Bay areas, that's Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, those are the key trouble spots. Now, what about if, hypothetically speaking, down south, there is a boycott, a huge boycott, and I know the numbers would say the north has an edge, over the south, but we know some of these figures, there are no proven statistics that actually back it up, saying there's a higher population in the north. Now, if the south does decide to boycott the election, because it's just nomination and form picking stage, and we are having so much friction, and some people are already saying that if candidates do not come from the north, all that. So if massively the south decides to boycott the elections, what is the fate of Nigeria going to look like?
Well, again, that scenario that you've just is not
Our
too
phone lines
far-fetched.
are open, and the number is 081-352-14850. So you can call in if you have a comment or you have a question to ask. Back to Olumide, please.
Yes, that scenario that you just painted isn't so far-fetched. We're not from that. In such a situation of insecurity, then obviously the army, the military, will have to be called in to intervene. You're looking at a situation of a state of emergency being called. You're looking at the possibility, you're flirting with the transitional government. And all of these are ingredients for civil unrest. It's not a good one. As far as how realistic in the South, let's say, in the Southwest or Southeast, the calls for boycott are echoing. It'll be interesting to see how particularly the youths come together to mobilize. I will just want to dive to the recent NSAS debacle, which was the focal point for the youths of this country. And it's not too far back. We still can remember how coordinated the youths were, how they mobilized, and how bold they were to challenge the authorities. We also know what has transpired or what hasn't transpired since then with the tribunal thing. The point that I want to bring out is that the youths carry a very, very significant percentage of this country's population. And the sooner that the youths realize that the power that they have in their hands, the better for them. Because it's their generation essentially that's going to inherit whatever carcass in the area. But certainly the situation is not bright. As far as the nomination and these characters that are coming up for nomination of forms, theoretically they are entitled. Any Nigerian is entitled to vie for any public office, provided that they meet with the requirements in the Constitution. But like we normally do, these are distractions from the core issues, from the main issues. And I'm quite critical of our people in the sense that we get easily distracted. And the political class also play this game where you bring up these issues, but the core issues that we are saddled with are never dealt with. Again, I would like to say it is what it is, but we really do need to sit up, and all sectors of the population, whereas the old, the middle, we, our generation, and then the youths, we really need to sit up and play an active part in this electoral process. The youth should get their PVCs and register to vote, and stand up for whatever they believe in. It's unfortunate that in this country we tend to bend over backwards. We basically accept anything that we're thrown at. This kind of situation could never happen example, closer to us on this African continent, it could never happen in Egypt, it could never happen in places like Tunisia, where people will take to the streets immediately and demand for their rights.
So much, especially with your, you speaking passionately for the youth, and I believe it's really time the youth take their stance and their stand and do the right thing. I mean, referring back to 2020 NSAR's protest, that was a well-coordinated, though unfortunate, time out for the youths. I believe that can be done again. So before we let you go, what do you want to say? What do you think is the best way of Nigerians putting their foot forward, so to speak?
Well, I just touched upon it. The salvation for our country will come from it has to come from the youths, because our generations past largely failed. The youths have tremendous challenges ahead of them to compete in the global space, and Nigeria is ostensibly the leading light in Africa and for the black race. Until we sort ourselves out, we will continue to be looked at in the international arena as almost as pariahs. We need to, the youths have the potential, irrespective of religion and tribal sentiments, to come together. We've seen them doing it successfully in entertainment and in the IT areas. And so we need to sensitize the youths more about their role and their responsibility for taking, their own destiny in their hands. And having said that, every Nigerian should go and vote, should register to vote, because that is where power lies. There have been since the last election, there have been some developments as far as improving the electoral process, the electoral bill, for example, and there's less room for rigging and manipulation. So we shouldn't just throw up our hands and say, oh, well, my vote doesn't, it's going to be whatever it is anyway. No. Everybody should wake up, as this program suggests, and we need to put our foot forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us here, though you were not live, and hopefully we hope to see you soonest with us here in the studio so we can have ample time to discuss another key trending political issue. And that's it. Leo, do you want to say goodbye to him?
Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Do have a
Bye-bye.
pleasant day ahead. Bye now.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right.